Erev Tov, everyone. This week's parsha, we are discussing the animals which are suitable for Jews to eat. And the Torah mentions there are 4 species that one should not eat, because even though each of the species has one of the attributes necessary to be kosher, if, for instance, it chews its cud, nevertheless, it does not have the second attribute of having split hooves. And then it mentions the chazir, which has split hooves, but does not chew its cud. So we have 4 species that the Torah mentions: the gomel, the arneves, the shofan, the chazir. This raises an issue that the Meforshim discuss. When the Torah makes a list of something, is that an exclusive list? Meaning, that's it. These are the only animals that you will ever find on the planet that have one of the simonim of kashrus. Or is the Torah just giving you an example? I'm giving you an example of 4 species that have one of the signs of kashrus, but do not have the other. And there may be others that exist in the world. So it's interesting that there are 2 schools of Meforshim on this. The traditional school, by that I mean most of the Rishonim, almost all of the Achronim, especially in our time, say that the list is exclusive. That we don't have to worry that there'll be any other species that will be found. The Torah told you, the Torah knew what it was. And even though there were many species of animals that were not known to the Jewish people in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and in later times as well, and I've discussed with you over the last few nights, instances and cases till our very day of animals that are new, so to speak, in Jewish terms. Nevertheless, the Torah, since the Torah is divine, so if the Torah makes the statement, so then that's it. The Torah knows exactly how many species there ever will be in the world. And if it listed these 4, then these are the 4. And you'll never find another one. Every so often, over the past 150 years, there appears a report of a species that was found that has one of the simonim of kashrus, but not the other. To the best of my knowledge, none of these species have ever been truly studied or found to exist. It's a newspaper story. Nevertheless, the mere fact that such a story exists raises the possibility that there are other species besides these that have one of the simonim of kashrus, but not the other. So therefore, when the Torah makes a list for us of things, Does the Torah mean only these things? Or does the Torah mean these are examples that you will understand because they're relative to you of what the general rule is? Now, for instance, the Torah says shofan. We don't know exactly what animal that is. There are, for years, people identified it as a type of rabbit. But if it's a rabbit, then what's the arnevet? The arnevet, most people who are interested in these things, there are not many. The arnevet is the European rabbit hare, which evolves into the American rabbit, which becomes the universal rabbit today, which does chew its cud, but does not have split hooves. So what's the shofan? So there are those that say that it's a type of a mole, a large rat that exists here in the Middle East. They're all over in the Judean desert, and that has the ability to chew its cud, but it does not have split hooves, and that is what the Torah meant. Since it's not clear, not only it's not clear, it's not translatable. That's the problem. I tell you rabbit, where does rabbit come from? You know, I always tell the story that I was once traveling for the OU, and I came to a small airport in Italy, and somebody was supposed to pick me up. And when I came out into the arrivals area, I looked around, there was nobody there that I recognized. Nobody had a sign that had my name on it, etc. I began to panic because my Italian then was not perfect. And then I noticed a guy in the back that had a sign that said rabbit. So I figured that was me, except he was off by a hair. So these things are untranslatable. So that's the idea that we had before, that everything needs a Masorah. You need like almost an oral tradition with every animal to say, this is the animal the Torah meant. So this question occupies the Meforshim as to whenever you see in the Torah examples, are the examples to be interpreted as limiting, or they are interpreted to be an example so you understand what the Torah is talking about, but that includes all other things. And that in Torah Shabbal Peh, you'll find that that's a machlokas that exists over and over again regarding items in halacha, not only in kashrus, but in the mominus and everything. But what is that? When the Torah talks about a shore and bore, is that all they're talking about, or are they talking about automobiles and other types of accidents? In halacha, sometimes you have that the Mishnah lists a number of Tanoim who are of the same opinion. That's called Shita. They go in the same opinion. So sometimes it extends for generations. 4 or 5 great Tanoim that are in the same opinion. There, the question the Gemara raises is whether halacha kishita or ain't halacha kishita. In other words, when they listed that these 4 or 5 Tanoim were of this opinion, does that mean that only these 4 or 5 Tanoim were of this opinion? But the majority of the Tanoim disagreed, and therefore, ein halacha kishita. The halacha is not like the list. Or is this examples that you see how strong this halacha is, that you have this Rebbe held it, and this Talmud, and this Talmud's Talmud, and another Talmud. Therefore, it's possible that the halacha could be kishita. So one of the difficulties that we have in halacha is trying to establish a basic rule as to how to follow these things. In other words, do we look at every case individually and we decide on the basis of the individual case? Or do we look at it to find what's the pattern here? What is the Torah teaching us? And if it's teaching us a general rule, then if we find that there are exceptions, those are only exceptions. They are not to be found and not to be followed. Because the Torah is not telling you the general rule, the Torah is telling you the specific instance and the specific case that's involved. So with this week's parsha, we have this example about the animals, where the Torah gave us a list. And that list, many Mefarshim believe it to be exclusive. That's just the way it is. Would never be found on the planet the Earth any exception to it. And there are others, especially over the last century and a half, that say that perhaps this is only a general indication of examples, but it's not limited. And therefore, whatever will happen, will happen. We need not be nervous about it if another species is found. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash, Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zakos Yisrael Lefichach, Yirbo Lahem Torah Mitzvot Shenamar, Adonai Chafetz Man Tzidko Yavil Torah V'Yadil.